Hi everyone, welcome to Peer into the Sound. My name is Reagan. I am the program coordinator at the Puget Sound Estuarium here in Olympia. Tonight we're going to watch some videos that were recorded by Matt Boulder with his underwater ROV. And then we're going to have both our aquarist, Sarah Neitzel, and also a volunteer and board member, Amanda Newsom, will be available to answer questions and talk more about the animals that we are going to feed. So we're really excited for everybody to be here. We're going to get set up a little bit more to get the video going, and then we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Should be all good to start up the video then.
Okay, so Sarah is going to be running the video on her end. And then why don't we go ahead and pause that real quick. Thank you. And then I wanted to give an opportunity for Matt Boulder to talk a little bit about his system and how he gets these video recordings. Matt is a volunteer that's been very generous with his time, and he has helped Estuarium at many events where he actually brings out his underwater camera and will have a TV screen set up so that we can watch and see what's happening. It's been a lot of fun. And then he also has done some modifications and things to his RV to get it to work a little bit better. So Matt, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you do it, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, and I really have a good time with you guys when I come out for the Pier Peers. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about my ROV and what I've done to it, and also towards the end of the video, I put together some images and some text that kind of goes into more detail on what I've done, so you kind of have a picture with the info. So it's a model. The model is the Open ROV Trident. They've also just changed their name to the company's name is called So Far. But I've also done some modifications to the lens, so I can put a macro lens for more zoomed in type photography and keep that level of clarity. But that's kind of it in a nutshell, and you'll see a little bit more at the end.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So let's go ahead and start the video, and let's start to learn about these really, really amazing animals.
Right now we're looking at a purple or ochre sea star. He's having a nice snack on his favorite food, which are all of the mussels you see around. When you see a sea star in this nice hunched posture like that, that means either they're getting ready to reproduce and put lots of sperm and eggs out in the water, or they're having a snack like most of these guys probably are.
Yeah, so it looks like he's got a nice little feast of mussels right next to him.
Yep, and there's probably more underneath them. We have a small hermit crab coming to get a snack as well in front of that front sea star, as well as some others around.
So what type of sea stars are these?
So they're called either ochre or purple sea stars. They come in two different colors. They're either a nice orange ochre color like this one that we're on now, or the purple like the other ones you saw. The scientific name is Pastor Ochosaurus, and they are probably our most common variety we have around here. This guy though here looks to be a mottled star though, who has that kind of nice mottled gray and blue color, and is another variety of sea star we see here. Ooh, and a spiny star, a lot of urchins. Oh. So urchins and sea stars are relatives of each other, along with sea cucumbers. They are all urachinoderms. They are one of your closest relatives that's not in the phylum we are. They share the important trait of when they are making their digestive tract, they make their anus first, versus most of the other animals in the world make their mouth first. As a result, you're quite closely related.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are one of those animals that does that. And then, so Amanda, echinoderms are amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about how they breathe?
Oh, so echinoderms have they have an internal skeleton. Well, they have an internal hydrostatic skeleton. So they actually pump water into themselves that holds them up and kind of inflates them on the inside. And that is part of how gas exchange is going on for these guys. And you can see a little bit of the fuzziness on top of this sea star. That's actually, that's not like algae sitting on the sea star. That's part of the sea star and part of how they clean themselves. They're actually little pinchers that pull off little bits of stuff that's settling on them. And they actually feel a little sticky if you put your finger, particularly on the ochre sea star. If you put your finger on them, they feel a little bit sticky, and it's because those little grabbers are actually grabbing onto your finger. And
Yeah,
I see somebody really cool here.
Yeah, we have a nice moon snail who's going along.
Oh, that's a great shot.
So you might see moon snail shells along. The actual snails themselves do tend to be much bigger as they kind of overgrow their shells. And they are predators. So they're relatives of other slugs and snails you might see on the land, and like them, they have a special hardened tongue called a radula, which they can actually use to kind of just grind their way through the shells of stuff like clams, or crabs, or other stuff that they might like to eat. So they're quite good at finding food and getting through any tough shells they might have. A little hermit crab.
So Amanda is also one of our beach naturalists, and I think she can probably tell us about those weird plunger things we see out on the beaches sometimes and what they are.
Oh yeah, so those are, they either look like bits of plungers or they look like, people will pick them up thinking that they're pieces of rubber tires because they're circular and they look plastic, but they are actually egg cases of moon snails. They, if you pick them up, they feel quite rubbery, but they then fall apart, and that's actually a special kind of mucus that's holding the sand together in this circular arrangement that also has the eggs all worked up in it. Oh my gosh, look at that sea pen. That is so pretty.
So
Sorry, I keep getting distracted.
Yeah, by all the cool stuff. We also have some nice nudibranchs kind of in the curl of the sea pen as well there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So sea pens are relatives of corals and jellyfish and anemones. They're another variety of cnidarian, which means they have nice stinging cells.
Oh, that's some really good bulk help.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, I think it was a pile perch that just swam by.
So again, if you do have any questions, we are keeping an eye out for those. Oh, we have a question, a good one. So are sea pens animals?
Yes. So the fancy term for all of your animals is metazoans. And to be an animal or a metazoan, you have to eat something, so you can't make your own food. You need to have more than one cell. So if you're a single-celled organism, you don't get to join the cool kids in the multi-celled world. And those are kind of our big qualifications. So some of our animals are very, very simple. Like a lot of our cnidarians, like sea pens, are pretty simple, have barely any nerves. They are a little fancier than our sponges, which are our absolute simplest animal. But yes, even though they stay in one place, which we call being sessile, they are still an animal and not a plant, just like these anemones we're looking at now.
Yeah, so these are some of our favorites that we see at what is our Pier Peer event that we normally have running on. And people like to ask, what is that fluffy thing down there? So those are plumose anemones.
These are pretty good size one. If they get enough time, giant plumose anemones can get about hip height on an adult human and weigh more than a 3-year-old child. And despite that, like many of our biggest things in the ocean, like whale sharks and our largest whales, they like to eat very, very small organisms. So they're using mostly plankton. So you can actually see the tentacles kind of responding and moving to things. When any little bit of plankton or something brushes into them, they fire off a little tiny harpoon and kind of spear the plankton and then slowly carry it down to their stomach. Oh, some rockfish.
Oh, rockfish. Oh, cool.
I've been at other events where the rockfish are very curious of the camera and will just get right up in there to say hi. They're pretty crazy. I know that some of these guys are endangered or threatened, so they're pretty special fish.
And the main reason for that is lots of species of rockfish are very slow growing. It can take them decades to get old enough to have any clutches of eggs to reproduce. So as a result, when they're fished or pressures on their environment make it harder for them to reproduce, they can quickly have their population collapse.
Yeah, and I believe I've heard that they can live for up to like 100 years or something, some of them.
They've recorded some that are that. The exact upper ages of lots of marine animals, especially fish, are hard to know. There are species of sharks and other species of fish that are recorded as like being estimated as several hundred years old. Oh, a seal
Squid.
grabbing a nice squid.
Oh, whoa. I'm getting a little bit of stutter on my end, so all I saw was this big gray thing, and then the squid was gone.
Yes, the big gray thing that came in with the stutter was a harbor seal.
Yeah.
Squids
Ooh,
are one
Dungeness.
of their famous
Oh,
foods.
no, wait, that's a graceful crab. Graceful crabs, cool, 3 of them.
Yes. I'm gonna do one thing to hopefully fix my internet. I'll be back in just 1 second. So hopefully get a little bit less stutter, but I'll leave it up. Just be back in 1 sec.
No worries. I got another question. So somebody asked, what sharks does the sound have?
Oh.
Yeah, it's a good question. You're welcome to take that, Amanda.
Oh, well, we have some that come through every once in a while, but the big residents that you'll see around here are dogfish that are only about yay long and have just the cutest little upturned snouts. And then we also have really big 6-gill sharks that stay down way towards the bottom. And they feed way down in the deepest parts of the sound.
Yeah, and then
occasionally we'll, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know there has been sightings of great whites. That's not something that happens a lot.
Once in a while.
Yeah, and then we do have what are called basking sharks, which are plankton feeding sharks, much like a whale shark. That's very, very rare that we see them. They were unfortunately pushed out as humans invaded Puget Sound and began to use more boats and ferries to travel. But they do still keep an eye out for them to see if they come back. And then we have
the red rock crab.
Oh, and this is a, whoops, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah,
you can go ahead.
Sorry. So this looks like a red rock crab because it looks like it has pretty short little antenna. We have 2 that look like this. There's the red rock crab, and then there is Cancer antenarius, which is just the Pacific rock crab. Oh, yeah, you see he just chased off another cancer crab over there. That's a graceful crab that he just chased off. So those ones with the black claws are either Pacific or red rock crabs. You can tell if they're the Pacific red rock crab, they'll have very long antenna.
And that, what you're just seeing, would be why that male most likely was chasing off another. It is getting into breeding season. So that was actually a male and a female kind of locked together so he could fertilize her eggs. And so the males will kind of defend a little territory and the females will kind of wander around and choose whoever they would like to fertilize their eggs with.
Cool. And then I had somebody, their son is asking why moon snails are called moon sails, I believe.
just because they kind of remind people of the moon, they're a very kind of, they have a very nice round shell to them, and they're kind of a very pale, kind of whitish gray color. So they reminded someone of what a moon looked like. And that is the primary reason they were called that. So you can actually see on this crab, which is a graceful crab again, all that kind of hair that is coming off is actually the gills. Crabs have actually a gill for each pair of their legs that go down, and they kind of fan water across them by just walking around. But sometimes they have such large gills, you can actually see them kind of around their legs as well. They have lots of...
So we do get questions sometimes of our crabs insects. See if anybody could talk a little bit more about how they are different than insects.
Yeah, so I can field that if you want.
Awesome.
Yeah, go for it.
So crabs are arthropods, so they're in the same phylum as insects, but they are in a subgroup called crustaceans. So they actually have, they share many characteristics, but they have calcium in their exoskeleton. And they, crustaceans are, oh, this is so cool. I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted. So it's not surprising that some people find that, that some people ask that question.
And then, yeah, so we just saw some really cool fish. We like these fish. So these are, yeah, some flatfish.
These are sand dabs, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Ooh.
Which probably my favorite fact about them is they go through the world's most extreme version of puberty. When they're tiny little babies, they look like a regular kind of fish, like a small fry. That's what we call a baby fish. But at a certain point of their life, they will kind of go through a metamorphosis where one of their eyes will travel all the way across from the other side of their head to one side. And we classify them in big groups depending on whether that is the right or the left eye. So you have right-sided flatfish and left-sided flatfish. This is a large California sea cucumber.
Gosh, this guy's beautiful.
Somebody asked, what are the greatest toxic threats to these creatures in the sound?
Like toxins specifically or threats in general?
That was, so just, they said greatest toxins, so I would assume if there is a specific type of chemical that is affecting our waters, that might be what they're asking.
We have a number of kind of chemical and pollutant threats that affect the water. So pollution is really anything that is out of whack in a system, something that there's too much of. So probably the biggest global thing we have is an excess of carbon dioxide coming into our water from all of the off-gassing of that. That's a major pollution that affects our ones here. We also have runoff, which produces everything from like oil from cars to bacteria from dog poop and the like that shouldn't be in our sounds being washed in, to nitrates and phosphates from runoff from agriculture. The Puget Sound is a pretty diverse ecosystem. We have a lot of rivers that come in from our watershed, which bring all of these things, and they cause different issues in different parts of the sound at different times. So we have a number of toxic threats.
Yeah, just to go back to the video what's happening now. So I'm seeing a bunch of crazy little things sticking out of the ground. I believe those are siphons from some bivalves.
Are they siphons?
Hopefully I'm seeing the same thing on the screen as you guys.
Yes, I do. Can be hard to tell siphons from sponges from tuna kits.
I was thinking they were maybe from Gaper class, but I'm not sure.
They could be with everything overgrown and stuff like that. It is sometimes a little tricky to differentiate.
Somebody asked, what was the little sluggy thing that we saw crawling around a little bit ago?
Could have been a few different things. There's many sluggy things that we have seen.
I think I know what they saw.
I think they were
the nudie bronc?
Yeah.
Okay. So it kind of had a frilly back to it. That is a nudie bronc or a sea slug. They are another kind of type of relative of a snail or a slug. But they are adapted to specifically living in the ocean. Those nice kind of frilly backs they have are how they breathe and remove oxygen from the water.
I did just want to follow up a little bit on the toxins question, because there are a couple of local issues that whoever asked the question might be interested in. So one of the things is down here in the South Sound, there are some projects going on to remove old docks that are all treated with creosote. Creosote is, it's just a waterproofing chemical that was used, just like a tar that was used for a long time. And it actually causes birth defects in fish. You can actually see in the fish larvae, their spines will be curved so badly that they can't develop properly, and they die because they can't even really swim. There is also some problems in the South Sound in certain areas, particularly during the warmer months, of bacterial buildup. And a lot of it has to do with people not curbing their dogs. So we actually have pet waste that is causing some problems, particularly, like I said, in the warmer months.
Yeah, that's why it's important to pick up after your pets.
And the toxic bacteria as well as toxic algae blooms we can still get here are a big issue for humans and pets as well. They can be the cause of stuff like paralytic shellfish poisoning, where this algae produces a toxin that doesn't bother shellfish like clams and the like. And so they'll gobble up a bunch of it and kind of just store that toxin away. And when a mammal like us goes to eat that clam, it causes paralysis and other problems for us.
Yeah, watch for those signs from the Department of Ecology, Department of Fish and Wildlife on beaches where you go to collect clams to eat. It's a wonderful thing to do. It's a great source of local protein, but it can be very, very dangerous if you don't keep those signs.
And especially also if you're walking your dogs out on any of those beaches, it's probably actually better to pick a different place to walk them, because dogs love to eat things they shouldn't. And they tend to be even more sensitive to algal toxins because they're not omnivores like we are. So be careful with those signs. You can walk there because you know what to do, but your dog might, so it's generally better to avoid those places.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Okay, so we have another question. It's a good one. Do any of these animals glow in the dark?
We haven't seen too many things that fluoresce right now. We do have a number in the Sound that will fluoresce at certain times of the year, including Noctilucus, which is a type of algae that blooms kind of in the late fall time more around here, though it shifts a little bit exactly when. That Windiscerb will fluoresce brightly. The squids we saw earlier do have a little bit of fluorescence to them. They can actually kind of control their coloration and shift it around, which is pretty cool.
Ooh, neat sponge.
Yeah.
Oh, sea urchins, one of my favorites. I love these guys because people tend to be very scared of them when they see them out at low tide. They are not scary. They are animals, so please be kind to them. If you do want to do something cool and fun, you can get a little sea urchin hug. So if you place your finger between those spines gently, they'll actually hug onto it, which is pretty cool. So they can move those spines around.
And that's actually how they move. They walk on the spines that are underneath them. So that's actually how they move around, slowly but surely.
They come in pretty cool colors.
And so they're not going to come after you or anything like that. If you do kind of accidentally prick your finger on one when you're out and about, just be sure to wash it off really, really well. Just because they can have bacteria on them, just like any other thing you might. That was a nice lion's mane jelly we had.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying not to like gasp and make too much noise, but I can't help it.
It's hard with Puget Sound.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a fried egg jelly. Sarah, do you want to tell us why they are called fried egg jellies?
So you can kind of see a little bit how they're kind of white around their bell, which is kind of the top point, and then yellow in the middle. They get kind of, this one's actually a pretty good one. They get even more yellow when they're getting ready to produce, because actually their gonads are really, really bright yellow colored. So you get this kind of fried egg appearance with kind of a nice yolky white outside and then a kind of bright yellow kind of inside to them, which is how they got their name.
They can get surprisingly big. I remember there was a picture a little while ago of a very large one that a diver found.
Yep, they tend to be the largest ones we see down here. We do occasionally see small lion's manes, but if you go up to, oh, hello there.
Hey.
Hey, shark person.
Yeah. So that's the dogfish, yeah?
Yep, I believe
that's
so.
what it looks like to me. I could be wrong.
And so this guy, we've had people see these before and they think they're eels, but they're not. So if you look on the side, he's got little fins. All right, so that makes him a fish and not an eel.
A fin fish. They're all fish, including our sharks to a degree. But yes, eels are their own special group. They don't have those nice pectoral fins. I believe this is some variety of goby. And then we are getting into spring and summer, so you might have seen all of those little tiny kind of transparent fish swimming around. Those are fry or elvers, which are juvenile fish variety that we get this time of year.
Oh, there's another really great sea cucumber.
Oof.
Yep.
A cute little sculpin.
Yep.
Now we're getting into some of the little guys. We got their shrimp.
Yeah, there's some small shrimp kind of on the side of that. These are some pile perch.
Quite a bit of sea lettuce. Always.
Nice.
Oh, the Metridium fields.
Yes. Metridium is the genus name for all of your plumose anemones that we have around here.
Someone told me once at Pier Peer they look like truffula trees from Dr. Seuss.
They do look very similar to that, especially the giant plumose, which kind of have those branching kind of things. You can see it kind of nice on this large orange one, that how it kind of branches off on its tentacles.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
So here's some more info about the drone, or the ROV.
So Matt, what made you want to buy your own ROV?
I've always really been into underwater type things. I'm a scuba diver, and I got into aerial drones a few years back. So just kind of happened to be a natural progression for me.
And I remember you had talked about using, I believe, 3D printing to make some modifications to your ROV as well.
Yeah. So that image you have up there shows some of the modifications I've made. So the clear parts on the ROV are 3D printed parts that hold additional light, a lens that lets you have zoomed in shots. It's called a macro lens. And then there's flotation on the top to kind of compensate for all this stuff.
All right. Well, those videos were amazing, Matt, and thank you so much for putting that together. Yeah, we're very lucky to know you and have you as a volunteer. And then I also want to say thank you to Amanda and Sarah for sharing all their knowledge and passion for the amazing animals we have in Puget Sound. Just so you know, we normally do a program called Pier Peer. It's down here in Olympia. We go to Boston Harbor Marina, and it's at night. And we usually will drop lights into the water. We'll have lights up on the pier, and we'll see all the critters that come out. Unfortunately, of course, with COVID-19, that has been put on pause. So we are hopefully going to start that up again soon once things start to open up. If you are interested in being part of one of our peer peers, just keep an eye out for notifications on our Facebook when our next one will be. And then we do have space limitations because we're on a pier. It's very, very, very small space. So you'll just need to register. We're the Puget Sound Estuarium. Please check our website, sseacenter.org, for more videos and information about Puget Sound. We also have a YouTube channel, and we are starting Instagram, and we're on Facebook quite a bit right now. So we're looking forward to providing more content for you guys. And you can always reach out to us if you have any questions. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciated that you stopped by to watch and see all these amazing animals. All right.
This was so cool.
I'm glad that you guys had as much fun with it as I did. You just cannot get bored with Puget Sound. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.